I think it's riskier to take a corporate job out of college than it is to try and build something of your own out of college. I genuinely believe that to be true. At this current moment in time, I am the youngest that I can possibly be out of college. I don't have real responsibility in the form of a child or a spouse. I, have the most to gain and the least to lose in a way that mom just did not have when she started her career.
Hello, namaste. Auntie Zarna here with the Zarna Garg Family Podcast, and all 5 Gargs are in the house. We're so excited to be recording a brand new episode, a very fun episode, a sizzling hot episode. You're going to have an opinion, and we want to hear it. We are going to talk about taking risk taking in the new year, the decisions we're making, the things we're letting go of, things we're comfortable with being uncertain about, and what is the role of risk in all our lives? What all are we risking? Are we risking money? Are we risking a relationship? Are we risking stability? And what are we hoping to achieve in place of it? So who wants to kick this really heated topic in our family off?
I
Shalab, you
think
want to go ahead?
I think the biggest risks I take are in Catan, and I hate saying that so much because them two force me to play Catan all the time. I have to make a deal with them just to play a game, and I think that that's the most I've learned from risk, because every time I take a big risk, it always ends up going well, as long as it's like kept down to like a certain amount. Because if it's some risk where it's just make a trade, which is what Didi does a lot, is why she loses so much, then that's why I win.
Loses so much is a very, very vague expression, not based in reality. But Veer has won the most games of Catan, which is a board game that we play as a family, than any other Garg, me, and Bridge combined. He's won more than anybody else. And I think
What do you attribute that to, Zoya? Because in poker it's the other way. You win almost every time.
He's saying that he's playing very interesting risks. And I think what's interesting about what you're saying, Veer, is that it's about calculated risks, right?
Yeah. That's
How do you make that calculation when you're creating trades and strategizing?
All right, let me explain a little bit. I'm gonna go on a little Catan rant. So basically, the goal of Catan is to get 10 points. You get 10 points by building, doing whatever. That's not important. But the risk I'm thinking of is I had 8. I had 8 victory points, and then I had 1 card, which is a knight. If you get 3 knights, then that means you get 2 extra points. So I had 1 knight down, and I had enough cards to buy 2 more development cards, which has like a 40% chance of giving you a knight each. And then I bought 2, and I got both the knights, and I won because of that. So that risk was a calculated risk, because I knew
what was the downside, Veer?
If I didn't, then they would have obviously had more time to develop and try to win the game.
But would you have lost some of your 8 points as well?
No, you can't lose them.
He would have lost resources that he otherwise could have used to strategize in a different way. But he took this 40% risk.
To strategize in a more like stable way.
Yeah, this was less stable. It was a lot riskier. And Veer, what did that teach you about taking risks in life?
You have to do it.
I have to make a philosophical point on risk, okay? Of the 5 members of this family, I believe that I'm the most risk averse of the 5 people, in the sense that, and even maybe amongst many others as well, but certainly amongst the 5 of you, I always try to compensate for that risk averseness with brand names. That if I have education brand names and corporate brand names, that they will pad themselves up to create such a cushion of safety net that, being risk averse would play out. And truth be told, as life has gone on, I feel like the more risk averse you are and the more you try to create cushions, the more hollow those cushions end up being as time goes on. And you find yourself taking a lot more risk than you expected you ever would. And this is a lesson I learned, partly because of the 4 of you. I think the 3 of you are so much more influenced by your mother. You only saw me go to work and come back in the evening. You didn't really see what I actually do or did. Whereas with your mother, you saw the hustle, right? You saw her perform in a subway. You saw her perform in Central Park. You saw her put herself so out there that it made you understand, what risk taking is about or can be. And for that, I'm really thankful.
I agree with that. I also think that, yes, mom set an example by taking risk herself, but even before her career, she always instilled in us that it's never about the actual risk you take. It's more about the progress with which you take that risk, right? Like it was always about, for lack of better terminology, the journey, right? Like putting yourself out there is super valuable because then you have the confidence to do it again later on. And so anytime that I was debating whether or not to run for a position in high school or apply to a really exclusive college, it was about you should put your cards on the table and let them make the decision. Put your cards on the table and walk away because they should be so lucky to see the cards that you've played and understand the value you bring.
Let me ask it in a different way. I'm going to give each of the three of you two choice road, and I want you to pick one of the. It'll be hypothetical. It's not a real life example, one that you may be facing at this exact moment. And I want you to pick which road you would pick in your current state of mind. Starting with Bridge. Bridge, your two roads are: one, to stay at Cornell, or drop out of Cornell to start a completely untested, non-technology based, nothing to do with AI, nothing that's the fad of the time, but something that you feel strongly about. Which of the two would you pick?
By untested, you mean like there's no guarantee of success?
There's no guarantee of success. That's my point. But you believe that it could succeed, but obviously there's no guarantee of success. Which of the two? On the other side, you get to finish your degree at Cornell and then see what you choose to do. What of the two would you pick? You're a freshman. A lot of freshmen over the last 25 years have done that. So it's a hypothetical for you, but it's sort of hypothetical in the context of the word.
I would definitely choose to leave and pursue the thing that I thought could be successful. I think as a person, anyways, I'm not very big into school. I've never been big into school. I don't like taking tests and doing all that stuff. Like, I just, not something that I think is valuable for my time, especially since the reason why I like being in college and what I'm doing in college is because I need to learn some of the things that I really need to learn. But aside from that, they're forcing me to learn like a lot of stuff that I don't need to learn and don't want to learn. And because of that, I think that if I did find something that I felt like could be successful, I would want to chase it. And it's not like we don't live in a world anymore where if you don't go to college, you can't learn it. Like you can learn everything in any subject online. Like pretty much everything you want to learn is online now. And also, it's not even like I have to leave Cornell. Like I can take a semester off. Like there's so many things that they give you to be able to pursue something and then come back if you want to. So I definitely think pursue is always the right answer.
All right. Zoya, for you, you have an option of a several $100,000 corporate job versus basically taking a year off to explore what you may do. You don't have a plan though. So it's not like giving up that job will automatically mean another income at the end of college, but just giving it all up to explore for a year.
I mean, that is what I'm doing, right?
No, but I'm saying that forget about the concreteness of what you may be doing. I don't want to tell anyone about what your exact concrete plan is, but let's say that concrete plan was not around.
I think it's riskier to take a corporate job out of college than it is to try and build something of your own out of college. I genuinely believe that to be true. And the reason for that is similar to how Veer did the calculation of what it meant to take a risk at that point in the game when it was so close. You have to take risks in the context of what your life is right now. At this current moment in time, I am the youngest that I can possibly be out of college. I don't have real responsibility in the form of a child or a spouse. I, have the most to gain and the least to lose at this current point in my life in a way that mom just did not have when she started her career, right? She had 3 kids and a whole house to run. And I saw firsthand how challenging it was brick by brick to build that business. Why would I not take risk right now? I also believe that if you're going to join a corporation, you basically have to decide, I'm going to be at this corporation for 20 years. When I worked at Apple, so many of the people that were in positions of power, the ones that I would seek to try and be in, had been there for 20 plus years. They had earned it with their time. And so by not taking risk right now, you're basically deciding to buy in completely to a different path that locks up your time and makes it makes it you're unable to make movement, if that makes sense. So I actually think, even though at its face it might look like it's more risky to not have a plan and to try something of your own right now, it's more risky to take that really flashy offer right now.
Interesting.
Because I think Shalab, to what you were saying, the bottom line is that not taking the risk is the biggest risk of all.
Yeah.
But that's clear to me at 50. These
I
kids are
know,
still.
but we learned, and now we're teaching our kids, right? Once you place your destiny in somebody else's hand, that is a risk.
Yeah.
No matter how big Apple could be $1 trillion company, but that's not your $1 trillion. People routinely confuse the branding with what's theirs.
Yeah.
When you are putting your
It's four
destiny,
4 trillion, by the way.
whatever it is, it's like once you put your destiny in their hands, that's the risk you took. It's not that you didn't take a risk, it's that you risked that they will be right and honest, and then they will not find you useless and you will progress, and there's so many things that can go wrong there. It's just that the initial offer is so flashy that it makes you believe. Every person, and you and I know, Shalab, when we were starting out and young people, every person at that moment thinks, wow, this is a lot of money. And then before you know it, your needs have outgrown that money, and now you are on the same trajectory that corporate America is in, which is at will employment. At some point you become too expensive for the simple jobs that they need to fill, that are the vast majority of their jobs. So
I want to say though, I think just specifically because we've made this about corporate versus like kind of figuring it out.
Just
and
this
coming up to
question was
yeah,
about that.
yeah, and we'll return to the larger question, but it is really enjoyable to work at a corporate job, right? Like it is, like you do get the perks. Like in most cases, you get to work in a flashy city like New York City or San Francisco. You get to be around the smartest, academically minded
Yeah.
students.
You learn a lot.
Students. You learn a lot, but you learn a lot within the context of the company.
Of
You
course.
don't learn a lot within the context of the world.
Of
So
course.
everything that you learn,
Is in that industry, of course.
is in that. It's not just in that industry. It's within that company. What works at Apple will not work at Google. Will not work at They're all different tech companies, and they're very different. And they're so big that they can't apply. You can't apply the same tactics at those companies at like a small technology startup, for example. So it is a very great lifestyle, is what I'm just trying to say.
And for you, the crossroad is the choice of going to the top specialized high school, where you may not be the smartest kid. You, in fact, won't be the smartest kid, and you will have to struggle and find your way, versus staying at your current or a similar high school. I know your middle school doesn't go into a high school, but a high school like your middle school, but where you'll be the smartest kid.
The specialized one,
Why?
because I'll meet better people and I have a higher chance of getting into a better college. If I go to college, but that's a different matter.
See, that's how I am different than the three of you, because I've been doing my own thing for the last 2 years. But if God gave me a second chance to go back to my job before that, where I was in a corporate job and at the top of the corporate ladder, I would go back to it.
Why?
Because I like the glamour. I like, what I said matter. I find it lonely to do things on my own.
It is very lonely. I agree.
I find it really lonely because, I have to sort of take care of every little detail. There's not enough resources. There I would have 3 people to do the tiniest of jobs, whose health insurance I didn't need to worry about. And the paycheck showed up and bonuses just showed up. I did have to work for it, but I didn't have to reinvent the wheel for it.
it was organized for
It was
you.
organized, yeah.
Yeah, loneliness is the biggest challenge of an entrepreneur's life, but you really have to be self-driven and self-motivated. It's not for people who need any kind of instruction, because you won't last anyway, and you have to constantly be asking yourself, are you an eagle or are you a sheep?
Well, one thing that you
How
said.
where did that come from? Eagle and sheep.
Eagles fly alone.
Oh, okay.
Sheep are always found in
In a
flocks.
herd. Okay, flocks. Okay.
So it's like it really is a personality type. Like you have to be comfortable. The loneliness is a real thing. And the way that many entrepreneurs, including me, counter it is by making friends with other entrepreneurs. So you don't share the immediate journey. You're not sitting there and comparing notes on your everyday work, but you share a bigger picture vision of what you want your life to be and all of that. There are ways to beat it, but it is not organized and it is never going to be organized.
It is very helpful to be like all my closest friends
Yeah.
are technology startup founders or people who have been making their own money for a long enough period of time that they understand the cost benefit analysis of why it makes sense to be working on your own versus to be taking a paycheck. But one thing mom always says about, like, specifically on this journey is about what the actual key differentiator is between taking risk in your work versus taking a corporate job, and it was the insecurity thing. Do you want to say? I think that's really valuable for people to understand, and I didn't understand it until you recently told me.
Yeah, I think that being comfortable with uncertainty is a hallmark of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial ventures and risk taking. Like once you're comfortable in your heart that you're going to land on your feet, the road may not be direct, the road may not be perfect, it is going to be challenging. In your heart, once you believe that you will land on your feet and you will find your way there, then it's a lot easier to survive that journey. Now, it is a luxury to be there. As your dad and me, when we were new immigrants in America, that was just not an option. That was just not an option. We didn't even have the basics taken care of. Part of why I push you guys to take the risk is because we feel, at least I do, not your dad, because we disagree, but I feel like I have paid the price for the crown that you guys have. You guys have the ability to take that risk because we have paved the way. And why should you waste your time doing things that you really don't need to? You should be dreaming bigger, thinking bigger. You're not beholden to anybody. I mean, part of why I could take a risk is because your dad put in all the years that he did in building a career, having the first home, and the first 20 years of work, which just can't be denied. So, but in the end, no one can save their way to success. That's something you have to make your peace with. You're not gonna, no matter what your salary, let's say your salary is $500,000, right? You cannot say to yourself, I'm going to save $100,000 every year. First of all, $500,000 salary is not $500,000. Half of it just goes to the government. So now you're down to 250, 300. And then all the expenses, none of which can be written off. So everything is after tax expenses.
This
So
tax consequence, by the way, is a major,
is a
and
major, yeah.
the three of you are too young to truly appreciate it. Maybe not Zoya as much, but the tax consequence of ownership of a small business are breathtaking because the government really allows, at least in the United States, I can't speak of other countries, but at least in the United States, the government really encourages small business. So you can, all these Ubers that you take, if you're taking them for business and deducting them from your top line revenue,
Yeah.
there is no tax to be paid on it, and it's from top line. So let's say you make the same $100 as Zoya Garg LLC, and the same $100 as a Zoya Garg employee. As an employee, you will get out of the $100 65 cents or 60 cents, depending on how many dollars it was, 60 or 65 cents in hand, and you will pay for that $5 Uber from that 65 cents, right? But as a small business owner, you will pay that $5 Uber from the $100, bringing your total revenue down to 95. So all of a sudden, your taxable income is 95, not 100. And if you keep doing that, you can bring your taxable income pretty much down to nothing, and
And
thereby,
you get to live a high quality of life.
hmm,
It's also a quality of life thing. The government actually encourages you to make expenses that help you build your business. Essentially, anything you do to build your business is tax deductible, which encourages you also to live well. Take that Uber. If you're going to sit in the back seat and have a business meeting and have a Zoom meeting, why are you going to take the subway? You should take that Uber and use the time to build the business, which to me is just a quality of life issue at this point.
First of all, this is very valuable information, but I think, as our family always does, we have devolved into work, and there are other ways
Yeah.
to take risks. You can take risk in your personal life,
Yeah.
right? Like asking somebody on a date is a risk.
Which,
I
please tell us, who are you going? What differences you have made to the person you're?
this year I am trying with my best. I'm making it a north star that if I am uncomfortable doing or saying something, I'm probably on the right track. I want to be a little bit more outrageous this year, not like unsophisticated, but just less afraid. I think Bridge and Veer are way more fearless in this way and take a lot more risks than me, especially in their personal life. It's something that I'm making a priority for the year.
So that means you will date non-conventional suitors. Is that correct?
No, as in like I don't have to wait for a guy to ask me out for me to ask them out, right? Like I can do that too. And I think I haven't been doing that much of that, and I want to do that this year.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that is definitely a risk, and the
Do you
kind.
get nervous about doing it? What if somebody ghosts you?
I don't get nervous about being ghosted, but I definitely get nervous about in the context of college. Oh, Zoya asked out that guy and then he wasn't into her. Like I'm afraid of the social implications,
Yeah.
like the ripple effects. But really, I don't know why I care about that because
Is it
ultimately, yeah.
is it different? So like I go to a school with only like 400 people in my grade, which is a lot for a middle school, but it's not a lot for a college, obviously. So is it different when there's like I don't know how many people are in your year in senior year in college, but is it different because it's more people that it's like harder to spread information?
Yes and no. It feels the same as it's always felt. Like it felt this way in high school. It's felt this way in middle school for me. It's the same feeling. I don't think anything really has changed. To answer your question.
So, what is inspiring you to take the risk? You haven't done it so far, but what's inspiring you to take that risk?
A, I admire people who do. And B, you don't get anywhere by settling for the options that you have. Anything that is worth anything is usually something that you have to seek out, right? If I only limit, for example, specifically in this dating vertical, if I only limit my pool to the people that are interested in me, that's a very small set of people and a very specific personality set. But if I expand that pool to the people that I have also asked out, there's a lot more diversification in options, and you're much more likely to find somebody who maybe was afraid to ask you out or like whatever. I think it's just a bigger pool of options. In that same vein, if you only settle for the one job offer that you get instead of fundamentally exploring every option that is available to you, including the ones where you have to create the option itself, that is a risk in itself. It's not taking risks. It's not looking for those other options.
When it comes to something like this, I feel like everything we're saying, it makes sense. No one's saying anything that I disagree with. But when it comes to risk in general and this family, I have always been on the opposite side of my mom on like every single topic of risk because in my opinion, she has taken risk to a whole new level of fear and she fears every single thing that could be somewhat associated with risk even though it shouldn't be. For example, and I'll ask you this question and I know we're going to have different answers before even asking it, but just so the audience knows, do you think that going to a concert is a risk?
Yes.
And I say no. So why do you say
I
yes?
agree with that. No, I understand what you're saying. So just to clarify this for the audience, there are many risks that I just don't like taking for no real valid reason. For example, going to a concert is not the riskiest activity on earth, but I do treat it as such. I also am not a big fan of travel unless there's a lot of clarity. I don't believe in adventure parks. I don't want anybody ever sitting on a roller coaster ride. It's true. I mean, I was totally against city bike. In my life, I've seen that for me to function with sanity, I need to limit the things that I take risk in. The reward has to be worth it. The payoff has to be worth it to me. I'm not saying that's how it has to be for you. And if I'm already taking five different kinds of risks in my business and in my life, otherwise, which is a very exciting thing that I do, which I almost treat like a game, then I don't have room to have volatility and everything else. I would rather not worry about whether there's going to be a stampede at some concert with 50,000 people in it. Is it a rational risk? Probably not. Probably not in America for sure. But I understand why you think it's irrational, and I hope you understand why I think I don't want to be involved in it. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
No, that makes sense.
Just to put it in another like more tangible metaphorical sense, there was this book called Outliers that I read that's, very well bestseller, etc. And the author put it in the terms of like a financial term sheet. And he said, if every type of way of spending your time is its own portfolio, so dating, food, drinking, exercise, work, family, if they were all verticals, the best way to optimize your portfolio is to zero out the risk of most of those avenues, in fact, all of them. So make it so that most of those verticals you are stable and you don't have to worry about it, and take risk excessively in one. So if you're going to take a lot of risk in your work, it's not wise, in his opinion, for the rest of our portfolio. So like for you to be doing a lot of drugs, for you to be doing these scary work trips. I think what you're saying though, Bridge, is that water sports, for example, isn't that risky. But even if there's 1% risk, if you're already taking risk in that one avenue, it's not numerically wise to then take risk in the other avenues, if that makes sense. And I thought that was a really interesting way of putting it.
But that is, I understand there's another point of view. Like you might say, but I want to live my life, which is equally a valid thing. Like, and some of these things are not easy to explain until you become a parent and your risk threshold is completely different, where you're like not worried about your own life, you're worried about the life and security of other people, and there's a whole total. So I get that. I mean, I'm asking you, Bridge, do you see any risk in riding like a very dangerous roller coaster?
No,
But Bridge,
not
to
in a
be
credible,
fair,
not in a credible park. Like in Six Flags, when I go to Six Flags, I don't feel any risk taking, like a little bit, maybe small amount, but nothing like warranting an actual.
but Bridge, to be fair, you broke your nose in an attack. It was not your fault, but somebody attacked you because you chose to. That attack you could not have foreseen, but your choice of playing in a non-neighborhood place, which was very far away from home, with a set of kids that were not part of your school and you did not know, you would not have called that risky. That's why you did it, and you saw the
No,
consequence of it.
yeah.
Does that give you any pause to not do activities of that kind again?
No, you can't let one moment like that like destroy your whole concept of life. I By that logic, me and Veer play basketball so much, and we play with random people who play basketball that we've never met before. Almost every single time we go to the park, we play with people we've never met before. These people are usually bigger than us. They're usually stronger than us. There's so many different things that they can have that make it capable of them just hurting us and nothing we can do back. But we can't stop doing that because we love doing that though. We can't stop doing it. Stop doing something we love because one bad moment like showed us that it may not be worth it. But I still think it is. Like I would never ever stop. I mean, last time I went to play basketball in the park, I dislocated my shoulder because of like a random injury that just happened. But I wouldn't stop playing because of that one example. You have to realize that like if you give up everything you do because you're afraid of one thing happening, you're just gonna live such a bland life, and there's no point. I don't even know what you're like. I don't know what you could do for fun at that point if you just give up everything.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Let's reverse this. What's a risk that you don't agree with taking?
Yeah, that's a great
Like,
question.
what's something where you're like, you know what, this doesn't make sense to me?
I think that stuff like drugs and alcohol, I think that's a risk that just doesn't make sense to me. Just because it's not it's first of all if the government is telling you that something is bad for you, sometimes of course they're going to lie, but like at some level you have to realize that okay, maybe it actually is just not good for me. Especially when it comes to like there's different classification of drugs and like one drug fitting into a different thing. I think a lot of people get really caught up as high school is very big and at college is very big of people drinking and smoking a lot of weed. So I just think that I don't know, it can't be good for your body. I know it's not good for your body actually. Like biologically it's not
Wait,
good for your
I just
body.
want to side note that the Surgeon General on Friday classified alcohol under the same category that they classified cigarettes, where in the same way that a cigarette pack has a warning on it that essentially says and describes in depth the consequences of consuming that substance, alcohol and alcoholic beverages will have that same label. I'm putting that into the world because I do get a lot of DMs all the time on Instagram from girls who are like, I can't believe you don't drink. Like, that's so weird. Like, how did you do it? How do you not succumb to peer pressure? This is also a risk, is social pariahness, right?
Mhm.
This is a
Yeah.
big risk By not no, Bridge, it's a thing. By not drinking, you can just pretend not to that you are, which is fair. I choose not to. I like to be a very honest person. I don't make it a big thing like I'm not drinking, but like I'm just not going to pretend to drink. I think that's not my thing. And one risk that you take by being a social pariah in that way is that people won't like you, right? What if you lose likability by not conforming to what most people are doing? And to that, I will say that the more time you spend cultivating who you are, the more like the people that are similar to you will find you. The serious people, the people who also weren't that interested in drinking themselves but didn't have the courage to do it. So taking risk in that way is also valuable.
I just want to say, going to that point, if you are someone who doesn't like to drink or doesn't like to smoke, and you think that that leaves you out of certain friends and friend groups and whatever, then the problem is not them. The problem is you. There are so many people out there that do not drink, do not smoke, and I've met, because going into college, I knew I wasn't going to do that. So I had to look for people or like put myself in environments where people who don't drink or smoke are. And I've met so many. There are more kids actually in college that don't drink or smoke than do drink or smoke. Or at least it's very 50-50. A lot of kids do, I will say, and a lot of kids that are more social definitely do. But there are so many kids who don't. And you can't make an excuse of saying, like, oh, because I don't like to drink, I can't make any friends. That is not an excuse. I get it that it's harder because there are people that maybe you want to be friends with like to smoke or drink. But there are so many kids that don't like to do that. And there are so many serious kids that don't like to do that too. You just have to put yourself in those situations and find them.
I don't think in life you just pick like that. Like, you may like a person and they just like to drink. You're not going to exclude an entire friendship because they like to go out drinking.
I'm not saying you should exclude the entire friendship.
I'm just saying that life is a little more complicated than just find that person, because the truth is that you guys are friends with kids who like to go out drinking and partying and
But I don't complain about it. I just say I don't agree with it. I don't think it's good for them. But I'm not saying, oh, like I hate that all my friends are smokers. Like that's not something I can complain about.
But no one's complaining about it. I think she's saying that when you make the decision not to do something that is a widely socially acceptable thing to do, that you are taking the risk that you become the unlikable person.
You definitely take that
You
risk.
become the person who might be the easiest to exclude from an event. People don't want you around necessarily because they want to have a good time, and they're not wrong. The truth is that they're not. As somebody who doesn't drink much, I'll tell you, I'm always included, but it is no fun for me or my friends to have me just stand there and watch them getting drunk. They don't like having me there. I don't like being there. The whole thing kind of falls apart, you know.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
So I just think that there is an element of risk to that. But these are all everyday topics. Like we don't, Veer, is there a risk you don't agree with? You're not a fan of adventurous rides and all that.
Well, that's not because I don't agree
That's
with them. That's just
fear.
because I'm too scared. Yeah.
Okay, so question for you: are you okay with saying that I'm too scared? Like if you went with a bunch of friends your age,
Yes,
and they all
I
wanted
do.
to go,
What are you talking? Why are you shaking your head? Yes, I
If
do.
you went to a amusement park with a girl you liked, would you go on a ride?
That's a lot different. I'm saying with my friends that I'm close
So
with.
in that moment, the risk, the fear that he's experiencing goes away because he thinks the risk of not going on that ride is greater than the risk of going on that
Bridge?
ride.
Is that happened to you?
Yes, that's okay. If you guys don't know, there's an insanely large roller coaster called King Ka. It's
Closed down now,
KING.
actually, but it used to be.
Okay, it used to be like the biggest. Like everyone was like that was like I think one of the biggest or fastest roller coasters ever, or something like that. But if you search it up, you'll find it. It's extremely tall. As a kid, I never went on an upside down roller coaster. I never went on like any sort of extremely tall one or steep one or like one where you're going up like this instead of like this because I was always way too scared. In fact, the first time I ever did it, my dad forced me to at Hershey Park. I remember very.
Oh my God,
clearly.
I didn't force you, Bridge.
He did like very much force me. But anyways, so in Six Flags, we went on a school trip, and there was a girl that I really liked, and everyone was like always talked about, oh, we have to do King Ka, like everyone has to do King Ka, but everyone's like most people are scared. Like it's such a scary ride especially when you get closer, you see how tall it actually is. It's so tall. So when she said she had to do it, I realized, okay, fine. Like the risk of me not doing it is much greater than the risk of me doing it. Like not doing it is like basically just admitting like. I don't know. It's just like, damn, like I really just didn't do that. Like I look like such a coward. Anyway, so I did it, and then Yeah. So yeah, dad. Yes.
How
And
did
To be
you
it
feel
fair,
after?
to be fair, I did
It
go
felt
on a
really
really
good.
scary roller coaster at Universal, the Jurassic coaster, Velocicoaster,
Oh yeah,
whatever it's
That was
called.
Yeah.
that was scary.
That was such a good coaster, by the way.
But we
Bridge,
really
if
liked
you
it.
were in a similar dating situation today, would you say do the same thing?
Yeah. I think that I've you can quote me
No, no,
on
I
podcast
think you
episodes.
misunderstood the question, Bridge. So if you're in this similar dating situation,
Okay.
but the ask of you was of a new kind, but equally scary, but you meet that ask, not forget the ride for a minute, but
If
it
the
could be a new
fear
ask, right? More appropriate to your age today.
Yeah, no, I get it. But if the risk isn't like something illegal or something that I've kind of wanted to do anyways, but I was just too scared to do, then yes, I think that's a good that's a good motivator. That's a good way to push yourself into putting yourself into uncomfortable situations.
Well, I think Bridge is getting to one of the things we haven't talked about are like most people who take risks are usually pushed by somebody to take that risk, right? Usually risk
Yeah.
doesn't happen in an isolated bubble. There's usually a catalyst for what risk,
That's true.
like somebody who's adamant that you start that business or adamant that you ask out that person. Like those people are the people that actually get people to take risks. So
Yeah.
I actually think that's a really important
But
portion of
this
risk taking.
topic is endless. There are endless offshoots of risk taking. I want to hear what our fans, what our followers, what our listeners, what our viewers have to say. Can please jump into the comments and tell us the risks that you took that worked out, didn't work out. We want to hear everything. And as we end every episode with a riveting round of good grades with Gargs, where each Garg gives another Garg an A grade, I would like to start off this round and then invite all of you, our listeners, viewers, followers, to give one of us Gargs an A grade. We want to hear what you think. So who wants to go first with good grades with Gargs?
I guess I'll go. I'll give my A grade to Veer. I thought that, for someone as young as he is, I think his approach to risk taking is very calculated and thoughtful. It's not just Catan, but even, his answer on the specialized versus it's a tough journey, the specialized high school, because now you have from the entire sort of 5 boroughs of New York City, the best of the best of the best kids all attending this school, and now you're sort of very exposed, and he doesn't seem scared at all, which is awesome.
I think I'm also going to give my A grade to Veer because Veer always is good about encouraging me to take risks in my personal life, as well as, I would give it to Bridge, but we got into a fight yesterday too. So I was going to give it to both of them, but then I removed Bridge. But both of them are very, very good at taking risks in their personal life and also being that person that encourages me to take risks. So
I'll give my A grade to dad because I think that when it comes to risk, it is so easy to say like, "Oh, I'm gonna take this risk," or "I want to take this risk." But if I was actually put a piece of paper that just said the word $500,000 on it, it's a lot harder to say no to that, like to click that button or to sign that like line, than to actually like to say it is one thing, but to actually like shred that paper of five. It's basically a check for $500,000. To shred the check instead of just cashing the check, it is an extremely hard thing. And I also do think when it comes to corporate life, there are a lot of valuable lessons to learn. And even as someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, I do think that like working in an environment like that for a little bit of time, you do learn a lot. Like all of these systems, even though you're working for the systems were created by somebody and the whole company. Like these are in their minds the best systems in order to work as a cohesive unit, right? There are stuff to learn from that to give yourself the best system when it's your turn to make the company or to learn from them. Like for example, when it comes to just business, and I don't want to be in business at all, but if you look at a company like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or something, just a very big like business company, and you wanted to be an entrepreneur in that, there are a lot you can learn from that. How did they do this? How did they organize? How did they model what stocks they're going to be looking at? How do they model which companies they're going to be looking at? Like what, just different things that you can pick up on. And maybe not everything makes sense to you, but just some of those things are, in my opinion, important.
I'm gonna share an A grade between Dad and Didi because I've watched them over the last like 2 to 5 years. I've watched them like literally step outside their comfort zone to take more risks. And I'm not gonna say it was completely them because I think Mom, you've also pushed them to take those risks, but it was definitely something I admire.
Okay. And I would give my A grade also to Shalab. I think that, he's not taken a lot of risk with his career until he had to, but when he had to, he took that leap and he took it boldly, and that was a very hard thing to do. What Bridge said is not wrong. Like, to pass up a secure paycheck to take that risk is a very, very hard thing, especially when you're responsible for more than just yourself. You have a wife, you have kids. It's a monumentally hard thing to do, and he's done it, and he's done it many times. And because he's done it many times, today we are all in a position to take bigger risks in our life, and for that he gets an A grade. But I hope that people enjoyed this episode of risk taking, risk taking in career, risk taking in adventure sports, risk taking in friendships, in drinking and driving, and whatever else other things there are. We want to hear what you think. We want to hear about you in the comment section. Please like, subscribe, and forward our episodes to anybody who you think would love to be a part of this world. And we can't wait to meet you again. Bye from Gargs. Thank you for listening.
Bye.